Hello, greetings, everybody. Today is the fifth day of Elul. If you're listening by replay, it still counts. Not only do we have the whole month, but the month of Elul, just like all time. This is one of the big secrets of time, Kabbalistic secrets of time, that every convergence of time, if you look at the entirety of the wheel of time, sprained wrist, but getting better. If you look at it, it's kind of like this vast roulette wheel, 365 days, or however you want to calculate it. And then there's 7 days a week, and there's Shabbat as the seventh day, and then there's the first day of each month, and there's the first day of the year, and then there's every there are the hours of the day. In any case, every convergence of time throughout the year brings in new specific energies and potentials, and then they distribute as the wheel turns throughout the entire year. So we want to bring down the energy of Elul into the coming year. Elul is spectacular in many ways, and one of the ways is that it gives us an opportunity to completely clear the slate, to completely rectify whatever it is that we failed to do in the past year or that we mistakenly did in the past year, as a preparation for the future. It's very easy and very toxic to be mired in guilt. It's not about guilt. Guilt, as is explained in Hasidus and the Tanya, guilt is it's a sticky emotion. It's like a swamp. I'm paraphrasing, but guilt is you could even say an excuse to do it again. It becomes part of the identity. It slows you down and mires you in the mud. Whereas anger, bitterness, to look at something that happened or didn't happen and to say, I want a different future and I got to fix this and I'm doing it now. I'm not taking this anymore. I no longer agree to this. I'm no longer tolerating this. And even when it's with a passion, even when it's a feeling of, even if you cry, that can be a very positive healing thing. So we want to distinguish when we look at rectifying the past and preparing for the future. We want to distinguish between guilt and bitterness. Guilt, again, is a toxic, identity killing, swampy state of being, whereas bitterness is like fire. Bitterness, even with tears, even with upset or anger or deep regret, but it will push you into action. It will propel you into a new state. It's literally like pulling back the bow so that the arrow will fly forward with force. Okay, that said, I want to talk about something Kabbalistic, and I want to introduce it with the idea of chaos. I've been talking about chaos. I write about chaos because chaos is kind of the order of the day. What is chaos? Chaos in Hebrew is tohu, which actually is also the name for the primordial worlds of infinite light. Chaos is a state of disorder. Disorder. So it can be a lack of order, like there never was order. Like imagine that you have too many things that you want and too many, if you're a visionary, this is actually a big problem for visionary people. And probably many people who connect with me are visionary people. So if you have too many things that you could do, but they're not in an order. If you have too many things on your to-do list during the day and they're not in an order, they will not get done, and you might put them back on your list day after day after day, because without order, without a hierarchy of first, second, third, without an interconnectedness between all of the fragmented things in the world, there's a lack of order, there's chaos. Chaos also implies a breakdown of a previous level of order. And that can be extremely disturbing. And I keep repeating this. Your identity, your ego-based identity, your sense of self, it exists as a construct in your mind. Therefore, when it's challenged, when life looks like something you didn't expect and you don't get it, you don't understand it, when your self-image gets confronted, when anything about your worldview is seriously, persistently confronted, it's a tremendous threat to the ego-based identity. Why? Because it's made of that. It's made of the way that you see life, the way your beliefs about life, yourself, others, your experiences, your memories, and that's its existence. So it isn't actually real like your body is real physically, or like your soul is real spiritually. It is just a construct. And we need to understand this because it has to change. It's like a covering, like a shell, like the shell of the egg, or like the skin of a snake that has to shed. The identity has to be able to understand itself, that its true advantage is in allowing itself to change. That's what chaos is about. Chaos is a necessary, an absolutely necessary prelude or step or part or stage in the breakdown of the ego-based identity, which does not allow your potential or a new reality into the world, coming into the world, does not allow it in. No, that's not true. No, that's not real. No, it's your fault. No, this can't be. No, I'm not going to go into depth because I'm going to keep this relatively reasonable length of time, but I hope that you understand. And please leave questions in the comments if you don't, and also leave comments in the comments. Share if this means anything to you. If you feel it's helpful, share it with other people. We need to band together to bring in this new level of reality, new wisdom, and new information, new way of being out of the chaos. I'm going to be talking about that very shortly, what the shift really is. But first, I want to put on the table that chaos is necessary, because chaos facilitates the shaking up and waking up, the breaking down, the opening of a stuck identity. Now, that identity can be your sense of self. It can be your sense of how the world always was and always will be. Some people call that the normalcy bias. It's very real. We don't believe things that contradict the way that we thought in the past. It can be collective, and it is collective. There are groups of people, there are nations, humanity as a whole has a tremendous bias in favor of the way things always were. And we're taught that from a very young age. It's not only our personal experience. We're taught that history repeats and history repeats and history repeats, and it always will. No, it won't. It's like if you look at water, that you start with water at Fahrenheit 33 degrees. It's liquid, right? At 30 degree lower, it'll be solid. But let's just start with liquid. And you put a fire under that water, and it gets warmer and warmer and warmer and warmer and warmer and warmer and warmer, and that's predictable until you hit randomly 212 Fahrenheit, and all of a sudden the entire process changes into something that you could have never predicted if you never boiled water before. It's just going to turn into steam. And it's similar with this when we are dealing with a state of history repeating and repeating and repeating, and we're resistant to seeing any other possibility, and therefore we're not going to step into that possibility. And we have to, because we are co-creative partners to God. It's not going to happen without our participation. It's not. We are co-creative in this world. We're here to usher in this new era, each one of us. So if we continue to hold on to the past, we will not be able to step into anything new. We won't be able to see it. We won't be able to receive it. We won't be able to act upon it. So even the miracles, the blessings, the fulfillment of the prayers that we also desire, those we hold away from us. We push out because we can't really believe in them. And this happens mostly on the subconscious level, but not only. It'll happen in the way in what you're willing to, what you're willing to explore or invest in, things you're willing to try. It shows up in ways that unconscious beliefs and emotions that you don't want to look at, that you don't want to change. Anyway, doesn't matter. The ego identity resists change with all of its being, because that is its nature. Its nature is its construct, and it doesn't want to let go of it. It feels like death. And that is the number one thing that is preventing us from being who we are meant to be, who we're called upon to be, who we're here to be. So chaos is necessary. Chaos keeps us, whether we like it or not, from holding on to that repetitive belief that life is always going to be the same as it always was. Chaos shows us, no, it's not true. And the more you resist, the more disturbing it's going to be. The more anxiety you're going to feel, the more fear you're going to feel, the more anger you're going to feel, the more fear, all of that. So we want to understand what's happening. We are in a metamorphosis, and chaos is necessary. Now I want to quickly speak to this idea of Aleph to Pela. Maybe I'll talk more about this in the next slide because it deserves it. So the Lubavitcher Rebbe has said many times he's talked about how the word for gullus in Aramaic, the word for exile, is spelled with 4 Hebrew letters. It's the word gola, gimel, vav, lamed, and hey. And the word geula, which is the core opposite, which is redemption, is spelled with those same 4 letters, plus 1 additional letter, which is the Aleph. Okay, I've mentioned this before, and many of you have heard it before. Okay, so gullus is actually geula, redemption, the transition into a divine world of heaven on earth, infinite life, infinite good, is made of the challenges of the gullus. It's made up of what we're doing here in the human condition all of these millennia, except that it's missing. It's still missing the critical piece, which is the Aleph. Now we know, or we're taught that the world is being created now and now and now at every instant by divine speech in the holy language, Lashon HaKodesh, which is Hebrew. The Hebrew letters literally create. Of course, on a higher level, they're vibrational, they're energetic, they're spiritual, but they're also physical. So when you look at how a word is spelled, if you change a letter, it changes reality. It changes the meaning of that thing. And when it comes to the fact that the Hebrew language creates, it actually brings new things into reality. So how do we change Gullus into Geula, Gola into Geula? We have to reveal or insert the Aleph. What is the Aleph? So the Rebbe explains that the Aleph stands for Alufo Shel Olam, the master, the chief of the world, the boss. This is not a random world. The first stage in advancing spirituality and advancing wisdom, and Aleph is all about wisdom, is to recognize that things are not random. There is, whatever you call it, however you identify it, however you're biased about it, doesn't matter. In this stage, you just have to recognize that there's someone or something in charge, that there is an ultimate underlying order. We talked about chaos, but there's an underlying order to the universe. There's a consciousness that drives it, and there's a purpose. That's the only way that you can possibly say that things aren't random. Like, people are very fond of saying nothing's random. But what does that imply? How could you say nothing's random? There has to be a conscious force that's orchestrating things for the good of everyone. And that's how come nothing's random. It has to be an all-powerful force also. So that's the first letter of the first level of the Aleph. Aluf Shel Olam, the master of the world, the universe, that recognition. But there are two more. The second one is Ulpana V'Limud, is learning, or Aleph Chachma Aleph Bina. The Rebbe describes that God is training us, he's giving us, feeding us, conditioning us to embed, to absorb wisdom and understanding. What is wisdom? It's the ability to intuit, to sense, to see something higher. And what is understanding? It's the ability to internalize that and make it yours. So the second level of the Aleph is in the Torah, what's called the revealed Torah, where God explains clearly, I'm creating the world because I want a dwelling place, because I want, a sustainable world, because I want a society that works. I want justice and righteousness, and this is how it works. And so the learning of Torah that has occurred throughout all of the millennia until not that long ago has been on that level. And even when it comes to the revelation of the mystical Torah, the Kabbalah and Hasidus, it's still, we learn it in order to change our physical perceptions and our behaviors. We learn it to create a deeper relationship with God. We're training the mind to think in a different way. And and corresponding with that, we're training ourselves to behave in a different way. That's the second level of the Aleph, to gain wisdom and understanding, Chachma and Bina, to evolve in consciousness. Again, so that we can, at stage 2, in our ability to create a higher order, a higher divine order, a sustainable world, where we can not only recognize that there's a master of the universe, but we can start to agree on, what is it that master wants? What is the purpose here? How are we supposed to behave? Steal other people's stuff or not? Club that beautiful woman when you want to take her home into your cave, or treat her with respect. There are all kinds of rules and regulations and principles that are necessary for us to understand, and certainly even more or as much for us to agree on, to live by, in order to have that sustainable world without war, without conflict, where everybody gets respect, justice. So these principles that are now kind of predominant in many societies, certainly in the Western societies, in the U.S. The U.S. is based on this, that all men are created equal, et cetera, et cetera. This didn't come from nowhere. Again, this comes from the Torah. These are principles that are brought down in the blueprint for creation. Who says all men are created equal? The Torah, God. So understanding that, who says you shouldn't, steal and take over and exploit? I mean, there were most of history, somebody in power, king, ruled by virtue of force, and his people were totally on board when he went out to raid. Like, think about the Vikings. Let's go raid and kill and loot and take prisoners and take their stuff. And that was a good person. That was a warrior. So these ideas that we take for granted, that this is not the right way to behave, that all men are created equal, all people are created equal, and that people have rights. There's such a thing as human rights, and there's such a thing as, as justice. And not only that, their values, the people shouldn't be hungry. We should share. These are all values of the Torah. And because we only drop into a certain slice of time, we don't watch the whole thing evolve, and we really don't educate ourselves very much into, or at least not, most people in the past have not had that opportunity. So we don't understand, we don't see the bigger picture. We don't see that divine wisdom and divine understanding is permeating human thought in a way that it just seems like our own, it seems logical. I've literally been in arguments with people where they say, everybody knows you shouldn't steal. And I say, how come? And they say, there has to be a God. I'll say, there has to be, someone in charge who gives you that. No, it's just morality. They'll say to me, it's just morality. Everyone knows. Where does morality come from? If you think about it, it's silly. There is no such thing as morality, right and wrong, unless there is a consciousness that is bringing things into being, that has created those values or has those values and is imparting them to us. That's level number 2 of the Aleph. Level number 3, and this is where we are right now. I'm finishing soon. Where we are right now in history is between level number 2 of the Aleph, gaining human wisdom. And as I just described, this is coming out everywhere. Most societies at least hold these as values. Human rights, justice, fairness, sharing, taking care of others, caring, even though there are societies that don't, but most do. And we're shocked when they don't. We're appalled. And that's new, relatively new, but that is not the end of the matter. We are moving from Aleph to Pela. Now, Aleph, remember, we're inserting the Aleph in Gola and Gullus in order to transform it into Geula, into redemption. So Pela is in Hebrew, Aleph spelled backwards. Aleph, Pela, it's the same letters spelled backwards, which means that from us absorbing wisdom as human beings, taking something from a higher source and forcing ourselves or doing our best to train ourselves at least to absorb it, to live with it, Pela is a different level entirely. It's way beyond the physical world. Now, Pela means a wonder. Literally, Pela means wonder. What's a wonder? Something that's not possible. It's wondrous. It's amazing. It's a wonder is even greater than a miracle. It is a kind of miracle. It's a level of miraculous, but it's so miraculous that it changes everything. A wonder sort of changes the nature of nature. The internet, by the way, is a Pela. It's a wonder. Now, but by now it's part of nature, but we are moving, we keep accumulating, we keep acquiring new wonders, new levels of Pela, and then they become natural. They move, so it goes backwards also. They move backwards, into more and more grounded human experience, human thought, human expectation. But the level of Pela can be like an elephant going through the eye of a needle. I've never seen that, but that's the archetypal example. A Pela can be that God is everything, and yet we cannot see God. A Pela can be that we are being brought in and out of existence at every instant. That's what the Kabbalah tells us. That's what the Torah tells us without doubt. And yet we feel solid as anything, like we can't change. I'm stuck. I'm immutable. This is the way I am. This is the way I'm not. And we really believe it. That's a Pela. The Gullus, the exile, is a Pela. It's a wonder, but in a negative sense. So what we need to do, what we're working on in the 3rd level of Aleph, moving from Aleph to Pela, is to train ourselves to the wondrous, to allow that chaos to dissolve the identity, to dissolve the known, so that we can move into the unknown, which is deeper and totally miraculous. The Rebbe said that and I will talk about this more later. And again, write your questions if you have them. This is a deep concept. I'm not going to go too deep in right now. It's already Shabbat for some people, or if you're watching the replay, well, it doesn't matter. It's almost Shabbat for me. So in the level of Pela, where we're moving right now, is into a world of wonders, which is impossible for the ego-based identity to receive. It's impossible. We're blocked. We're blocking it. We're blocking it. We have to understand what the change is about. Like for the caterpillar flying, it's a Pela. Come on, I don't fly, I crawl. I can barely crawl on all my little legs. What are you talking about? And there has to be a force majeure, a higher force that winds up the caterpillar in a cocoon and melts it down into gel and then reconstitutes it into this other level of being. Chaos, necessary. And it's part of the evolution of that entity, caterpillar butterfly, which is literally one entity in 2 different forms. We are moving from human.1 to human.2, 2.0, sorry, 1.0, 2.0. Oh, because true confessions, I have some artichokes boiling on the stove and I hear them. I have to turn them off in a second. I'm getting distracted. Anyway, so we are meant to allow the melting down of our beliefs. We are meant to start to flow with the chaos, to lessen the resistance, to work on the stuck pieces of us, primarily fear and judgment, limiting beliefs. There's a lot to say about this, but we're meant to work on that ego-based identity in its most limiting form, to open it up, to it be a channel for the soul, for the perceptions of the soul. The soul already lives in the world of wonders. It's the fact that you could be stuck and have an identity at all is to the soul like, what's going on here? Let's connect to God and the fact that the world is infinite and miraculous. What are you doing? Anyway, so this is the transition. This is where we are right now. And every single thing that is happening to trigger us into fear, into guilt, into anger, into judgment, into withdrawing, into blaming, that is only the ego-based identity reacting to the chaos, trying to hold on to the caterpillar form, to the Aleph. We must allow ourselves to be moved into the Pela. The Rebbe said that we need to bring, he said in 1991, and again, I'm going to say again, we're here 30 years and we are making progress, but it's a kind of limbo because why? We are in the way. We're stuck between Aleph and Pela. Maybe we're stuck even, some people aren't even at Aleph. So everybody is where they are. We are all on the same train. We might be in different cars, but we need to move forward in order to become channels for this new reality rather than blocking it out. Okay? You want to be an open door, not a closed one. And that starts primarily in consciousness. So the Rebbe said that Mashiach and Geula will come in a manner of Oris de Tohu, he said, in Kelim de Tikkun. What is that? The lights of Tohu, of the primordial world of chaos, infinite potential, infinite godliness, in the vessels of Tikkun, in a higher divine order in the physical world. So in other words, we're meant to now start to experience that light which is completely beyond nature, completely miraculous, completely wondrous within our physical world. And we're supposed to experience that potential and the belief of that it is not only possible, but that it's necessary, that it's happening, and that we must participate in being agents for that infinite, wondrous, miraculous potential within our bodies and within this state of being, in this stage of creation. We are not here to wait to be rescued. We are here to rescue. We are here to participate. And the more you step into that level, and what does it look like? I'll talk more about it in the next live, God willing, but it looks like changing your relationship with God. It looks like doing the work that it takes to unwind the trauma and the fears. It looks like noticing the limiting beliefs and confronting them by trying and allowing for new things. This is a long conversation. Actually, my year-long program is designed to actually create this change, to support you in every aspect of it, with tools and learning and connections and matrix prayers and the community that is building together a completely new morphic field, which is changing everyone's lives. But you can get a lot just by thinking about it, by meditating, and I will talk about it more throughout Elul. Your questions and your comments will in part guide where I go in future calls, but I want you to understand that we're moving from the world bound by the laws of nature into a world unbound by those laws, or where we are changing the laws of nature and of our own nature. The Rebbe says that we are meant to all of us to do miracles, to be miracle makers. How do you make miracles? That might take some training, or maybe some of you already do. Prayer is a huge factor. But if you don't believe in miracles and you want to stay stuck to the old, and you're going to run to governments and institutions and those sorts of places, even in the best case and the worst case, where you're in a state of fear and blame and hatred and so forth and divisiveness, in order to feel safe, you're going in the wrong direction and you're blocking the light of change. It's as if the caterpillar had, there was a whole 7 or 8 billion caterpillars all getting together, most of them saying, let's just, stay in our houses. Let's there's a scary thing out there. No, you're not meant to be a caterpillar. And I'm not saying nothing's scary. I'm saying it's time to unwind fear. It's time to look at our deep triggers and unwind those. It's time to step into a supernatural world while being in this physical universe. Again, there are pathways, tools, much wisdom and divine transmission of power given by the Rebbe and other sages and teachers in the world of mystical Torah. But that's where I'll leave it for today. Shabbat Shalom to everybody, and may we see wonders. It's promised that we'll see wonders. So let me add, may we be wonders. To be continued. Lots of love.